Hey everybody! I've been wanting to do a video like this for quite some time where we take a look at media bias and examine where it is, how to identify it, and what to do about it. The problem's always been that, let's face it, it's rampant. It's absolutely everywhere, and there's different types of bias and different ways that it shows itself. So what I decided to do is break it down and take a look at aspects of bias and look at specific examples of recent events and how these biases show up. In this video, I want to look at headlines and specifically how they're used to give a particular narrative about a story, one that may not be entirely accurate. And we're going to do that by looking at two stories from the Washington Post. Now, I know the Washington Post is, let's face it, it's a dumpster fire of misinformation. However, their blatant bias makes them a perfect example. And I want to start by taking a look at this headline here. Tucker Carlson says he's the victim of a powerful bully. Meet the 24-year-old who found the tapes. So quick recap for those unfamiliar with this story. During the years 2006 and 2011, I believe, Tucker Carlson was employed by MSNBC. Tucker Carlson now is a commentator on Fox News. During that time, he made several appearances on a shock jock radio show called Bubba the Love Sponge. This show was nationally broadcast and listened to by hundreds of thousands of people. And on that show, Carlson said some things that were reprehensible. I'm not going to defend anything that he said because it was truly bad stuff, and I don't condone a single word of it. However, again, this was almost a decade ago, and at the time, there was no pushback on him. So what does any of this have to do with the article in question? Well, let's take a look at this title again. Tucker Carlson says he's the victim of a powerful bully. Now, if an organization came after me, funded by millions of dollars, with the express purpose of destroying my career by looking through decades of media content, well, I might feel the same way. But the article didn't even stop there. It had to take it even a step further. Meet the 24-year-old who found the tapes. Now, this sentence implies several things. First, that somewhere out there was a hidden archive of tapes that somebody stumbled upon and released to the world. That's not the case. These were found on the internet. Anybody could have found them if they were looking for them. The other thing that it implies is that a single person was looking through and just stumbled across them. Also, not the case. This is somebody who was hired and paid to find this information that, again, anybody could have found. And who, you might ask, is this person's employer? Well, that would be Media Matters. So who is or what is Media Matters? Media Matters is an organization whose express purpose, whose sole creation, is to destroy conservative voices. How does it do that? Well, it has a very basic formula that it follows. So first, Media Matters uses its millions of dollars in funding to hire people like this individual to scour through decades of media in the hopes of finding some objectionable soundbite that they can use to go after a particular person. In this case, Tucker Carlson. He said something stupid almost a decade ago. Then they go after that individual's advertisers to remove them from the air so their voice can no longer be heard. Basically, it's a way of silencing dissenting opinions. They send notices to these advertisers saying that if they continue to advertise for the stations that carry these individuals, they'll be boycotted. Now, does Media Matters actually have that power to boycott? No. They certainly think they do, but in reality, they have absolutely no way of boycotting to any substantial extent any of these advertisers. However, the advertisers are terrified of them for some reason and usually end up kowtowing to their bullying tactics. Now, I disagree with Tucker on a lot of issues, but I have to say, anytime you go after somebody's advertisers like that, that's a very dangerous road and a slippery slope you're going down, because that could affect both sides. And it's basically mutually assured destruction. If you continue down that path, you're going to silence both sides. But I digress. Back to the article and back to the headline in question. Another interesting fact here is that they seem to imply that this 24-year-old is a kid. In fact, in the article, they mentioned a reference to this person as a kid. Now, this is a 24-year-old adult. This is not a kid. Last I checked, you stopped being a kid at 18. Now, just because you're living in your mom's basement, or in this case, you're living in a basement with 5 other people, you're still not a kid, even if you act like one. In fact, in this case, you're an adult with the backing of a multi-million-dollar organization. And what's really funny and extremely hypocritical about this article is that when Mike Cernovich found tweets from James Gunn last year about pedophilia, things that were way worse than what Tucker Carlson said, the Washington Post actually put out an article saying that we need a statute of limitations against public outrage like this. Yet here they are now defending that same thing, but since it's a conservative voice, it's a different story. But enough about Tucker. Let's go ahead and take a look at another article or another headline from WAPO that shows their bias. This one reads, Trump proposes big cuts to health programs for poor, elderly, and disabled. This headline is designed to make you think that Trump is taking money from the sick and needy, that his budget reduces the amount of money that we're spending on these programs. That couldn't be further from the truth. Even the article can't hide the fact that these cuts are actually reductions in the increase of money spent on these programs. That's right. This budget in no way decreases spending. It only reduces how much more we're going to spend over the next several years. Yet somehow this is going to destroy these social programs? I fail to see how. In fact, this entire budget is so massive, the whole thing needs to be cut by about 80%. If I spent $10,000 on food last year and decided to set aside $15,000 for next year on food, but ultimately decide, you know what, I'm only going to set aside $13,000 for food, I'm still spending more on food. I haven't cut my food expense in any way whatsoever. I've increased it less. Now, the real key here is WAPO doesn't actually want you to read their article. They want you to look at the headline, click on it so they get their advertiser revenue, and just ignore everything and just go with the narrative, Orange Man bad, Trump is trying to steal from the elderly and the needy, and now we need to get rid of him and kick him out of office. And again, even the article explicitly states that the savings comes from reducing fraud, abuse, and overpayments. Things that should have been eliminated a long time ago anyway. So what's the point of this video? What's the big takeaway? Media organizations like the Washington Post exist because people believe the headlines without bothering to follow up on the underlying facts. And my hope is that you, the listener, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, realize that you are the target of this manipulation. So don't just base your opinions on the headlines. Look at the actual facts. Look at what underlines those headlines. And try to get those facts from multiple sources. Keep in mind, all sources are biased in some way. Some are more overt, some are less, but all biased in some way. And don't be a victim. Be a champion of independent thought. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing. I plan to have more videos focused on media bias and how to identify in the very near future, as well as my usual content. And if you have any feedback, please leave it in the comments. I'm constantly trying to make this channel grow, and if you have anything that you can help me with, please let me know, and I'd be happy to hear from you. And until next time, I hope you have a fantabulous day.